The howling winds of Glacier 9 clawed at the training vessel's hull as it descended through sheets of dry ice blizzards. Inside, 12 cadets from across the Orion Belt adjusted their exosuits, running final diagnostics on thermal regulators and oxygen synthesizers. Among them stood Aaron Mallory, the lone human representative, methodically checking the contents of his canvas pack flint striker, collapsible shovel, dried protein rations, waxy tinder blocks, and a hand-sewn parka reinforced with animal fat treatments. Commander Vorik, a 7-foot crystalline being from the Arcturus system, glided toward Aaron, contempt shimmering across his translucent features. Mallory. Vorik's voice resonated with harmonics that suggested both amusement and concern. Final opportunity to requisition proper survival equipment. Your primitive gear will not sustain core temperature in Theta 7 conditions. Aaron tightened the weathered leather straps of his pack. With respect, Commander, I'll manage with what I have. Admirable stubbornness, Vorik replied, mandibles clicking in what passed for a smile among his kind. But Glacier 9 has claimed far more technologically prepared cadets than yourself. The Academy requires peak performance, not heroic gestures. Around them, alien cadets adjusted helmet seals and calibrated their hovering equipment drones, shooting occasional glances at the human. A slender, phosphorescent being named Zeal approached, her light patterns pulsing with what Aaron had come to recognize as derision. The mammal insists on using sticks and stones, Zeal hummed to her companions, vocal sacs vibrating beneath her jaw. Perhaps we should harvest his frozen remains for the xenobiology lab. The cadets' laughter ended abruptly as the ship lurched, stabilizers fighting against the increasing tempest outside. The rear hatch descended with a pneumatic hiss, revealing a world painted in gradient shades of white and gray. Wind shrieked through the opening, carrying microscopic ice particles that immediately coated exposed surfaces in frost. Cadets, Vorik's voice cut through the howl of the storm. 36 hours survival exercise in Zone Theta 7. Extraction at coordinates 227.856 by 0700 hours. Navigation beacons are embedded, but will not activate until extraction window. Your performance evaluation begins now. The alien cadets activated their exosuits with practiced precision. Thermal fields hummed to life around their bodies, creating shimmer effects as they stepped confidently into the storm. Their equipment drones deployed, scanning the terrain ahead for optimal shelter locations. Aaron stood at the threshold, feeling the first violent bite of Glacier 9's atmosphere against his exposed cheeks. He pulled up his hood, tightened the drawstrings, and stepped into the white void. Behind him, he heard Zeal's parting comment. The human will call for emergency extraction within 3 hours. Anyone care to wager on 2? The first steps onto Glacier 9's surface felt like walking on styrofoam crunchy, yet somehow yielding. Aaron's thermometer read 78 degrees Celsius, but the remarkably dry air made it feel different from Earth's wet cold. The true enemy here wasn't just temperature. It was the razor-sharp wind that seemed determined to find every microscopic gap in his clothing. 50 meters ahead, he could barely make out the shapes of his fellow cadets deploying their equipment. Hover stakes drove themselves into the ice with sonic pulses, creating anchor points for their self-heating smart domes. Within minutes, the aliens would be enjoying regulated microclimates, complete with atmospheric adjustments to match their homeworlds. Aaron turned away, focusing instead on the lay of the land. Survival began with observation. The wind followed patterns here. He could see it in the sculptured snow ridges and ice formations, 100 meters to his right. A natural depression offered some protection from the prevailing gusts. More importantly, the snow there appeared deeper, more granular. Perfect for building. He trudged through knee-deep snow, each step requiring twice the effort of normal gravity. Glacier 9 was small, but dense, its iron core generating 1.2 g of pull. By the time he reached the depression, his forehead glistened with sweat despite the cold, a dangerous situation. Aaron immediately adjusted his pace, careful to avoid overheating. The depression was better than he'd hoped, a natural windbreak with accumulated powder snow, nearly 2 meters deep. He began to dig, using his collapsible shovel to create uniform blocks. The technique was ancient among Arctic peoples, of earth-cut blocks. Arrange in an inward spiraling circle. Allow the weight to compress and create a self-supporting dome. 2 hours into the work, his fingers had lost significant dexterity despite his insulated gloves. The Igloo's foundational ring was complete, and he'd begun the inward spiral of the second layer. In the distance, he could see the colorful glow of the alien encampment blues, greens, and purples from their climate domes reflecting against the ice. He returned to his methodical work, cutting, lifting, placing. The physical labor generated welcome heat, but he knew the real challenge would come once the shelter was complete. Without an external heat source, he would still freeze during the long night ahead. The pale sun of the system hung low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the ice fields. It provided minimal warmth, but Aaron knew its weak ultraviolet rays could still be harnessed. As the Igloo's dome neared completion, he scanned the terrain for his next critical resource, clear ice. Most of Glacier 9's surface was composed of compacted snow or cloudy ice, useless for what he needed. But near a rocky outcropping 50 meters away, he spotted what might be a frozen meltwater pool. Completing the Igloo's entry tunnel would have to wait. The pool was indeed clear ice, solid, transparent, and perfect for his needs. Using the handle of his shovel, Aaron cracked the surface and extracted a chunk the size of a dinner plate. He quickly returned to his shelter, where he used his knife to begin shaping the ice into a crude lens. Working with numb fingers was excruciating, but precision was essential. The lens needed to be biconvex, thick enough to maintain its shape, but shaped correctly to focus the weak sunlight. The work was slow, interrupted by frequent pauses to warm his hands against his stomach. In the distance, he heard the mechanical whir of a drone and looked up to see one of the alien reconnaissance units hovering nearby. Its optical sensors clearly focused on his position. Aaron ignored it, returning to his task. Let them watch and wonder. By the time the lens was complete, the sun had lowered further, its weak rays now at the perfect angle. Aaron positioned the ice lens carefully, catching the light and directing it onto a small pile of waxed tinder he'd prepared. The focused beam created a bright spot, but the heat was minimal. "Come on," he whispered, adjusting the angle minutely. "Just a little more." After 3 agonizing minutes, a wisp of smoke rose from the tinder. Aaron bent close, blowing gently, coaxing the ember to life. The tinder caught, a tiny flame dancing in the brutal cold. With practiced movements, he transferred the flame to his prepared fire pit inside the nearly completed igloo. The fire pit contained a careful arrangement of fat-soaked cloth strips and dried vegetation he'd brought from Earth. The flame grew, feeding hungrily on the high-energy fuel. Aaron finished the igloo's structure, working by firelight, carefully shaping the smoke hole at the top of the dome. The interior temperature, while still well below freezing, had already risen 20 degrees above the outside air. He unpacked his sleeping furs, arranging them on a raised platform of snow blocks, covered with insulating material. Outside, the sun finally disappeared, plunging Glacier 9 into darkness, broken only by starlight and the eerie glow of distant climate domes. Inside his igloo, Aaron fed his small fire, the dancing flames casting shadows against the snow walls. The first true test had been passed. He had shelter and fire, the 2 most fundamental requirements for survival. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now, he allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. In the darkness outside, the alien drone hovered longer than its programmed surveillance pattern required. Its operator, clearly fascinated by the primitive, yet effective methods of the human cadet. Aaron awoke to the sound of wind changing pitch. He'd slept lightly, rising every hour to tend his small fire. The interior of the igloo was now remarkably comfortable, still cold enough to see his breath. But the snow walls had begun to glaze with a thin layer of ice from the trapped heat, strengthening the structure and improving insulation. He checked his chronometer, 0530 local time. The extraction was still more than 24 hours away, but something in the wind's voice had changed. He crawled through the entry tunnel and emerged into pre-dawn darkness. The sky above had transformed. Where stars had shone clearly the night before, now ribbons of green and purple light danced across the heavens, an aurora of extraordinary intensity. Beautiful, but ominous. On Earth, such displays were caused by solar activity interacting with the magnetosphere. If Glacier 9 experienced similar phenomena, it could indicate a geomagnetic event. Aaron studied the alien encampment in the distance. Their domes glowed steadily, but he noticed the periodic sweeps of their security drones had stopped. Either they were conserving power, or something had changed in their operational capabilities. He returned to the igloo and consulted the briefing materials he'd memorized. Glacier 9's magnetic field was unstable, with periodic fluctuations that could interfere with sensitive electronics. The survival briefing had mentioned potential storms, but indicated they typically occurred during the planet's summer season, still months away. Unless the briefing data was incomplete or deliberately misleading. Aaron smiled grimly. The Academy was known for throwing unexpected challenges into training scenarios. A magnetic storm would certainly test the cadets' adaptability. He spent the next hour fortifying his position. The igloo now featured a proper windbreak around the entrance and a small antechamber for storing equipment. He'd also collected additional clear ice, both for lenses and for melting into drinking water. As the weak sun finally crested the horizon, Aaron was outside, searching for the fibrous roots of ice plants he'd read about in xenobotany studies. These native organisms grew beneath the snow, drawing nutrients from mineral deposits in the ice. Their roots contained oil-rich fibers that burned slowly and hot, perfect for extending his fuel supply. The first tremor hit without warning, a vibration that rippled through the ice beneath his feet. Seconds later, the aurora overhead intensified dramatically, cascading waves of light pulsing with increasing frequency. In the distance, he heard the first alarm, a high-pitched wailing from the alien encampment. Through his binoculars, Aaron witnessed the smart domes flickering, their energy fields destabilizing. Equipment drones fell from the sky like dead insects, crashing into snowdrifts. The magnetic storm had arrived, far ahead of its projected season. Aaron hurried back to his igloo, securing loose equipment. His simple tools knife, flint, shovel remained unaffected by the electromagnetic disruption, but his chronometer and communicator went dark. Technology dependent on electronic components was now useless. The storm intensified over the next hour. The ground trembled continuously as electromagnetic forces played havoc with Glacier 9's iron core. The temperature plummeted further, dropping another 15 degrees as atmospheric patterns shifted. From his igloo entrance, Aaron watched chaos unfold at the alien encampment. Their domes had collapsed entirely, protective fields extinguished. The exosuits, marvels of technology designed to withstand extreme environments, had transformed into cumbersome shells without power to their thermal regulators or mobility enhancers. The first alien figures appeared at the periphery of his vision, two cadets struggling through deepening snow, their movements awkward in powerless exosuits. Even from this distance, he could see the panic in their body language. Aaron hesitated only briefly before stepping fully outside, waving his arms to attract their attention. Their sophisticated optical enhancements were surely offline, but movement against the white landscape might catch their notice. One of the figures changed direction, laboriously making progress toward Aaron's position. As they drew closer, he recognized the phosphorescent patterns of zeal, now dimmed by cold and fear. Behind her trudged Karg, a methane breather whose crystalline exoskeleton now bore frost patterns across its surface. The human. Zeal's voice was strained, her vocal harmonics flat from the cold. Your shelter still stands. It's not dependent on power, Aaron replied simply, gesturing them inside. Come in before you freeze. They struggled through the entrance tunnel, their exosuits scraping against the snow walls. Inside, both aliens stared in naked wonder at the small fire burning in the central pit. How is this possible? Kargu's translation unit was offline, but Aaron had learned enough of the crystalline being's native clicking language to understand the basic question. Fire doesn't need electricity, Aaron explained, helping them remove the now useless external components of their exosuits. Where are the others? Scattered, Zeal managed, her phosphorescent skin pulsing weakly as she moved closer to the fire. The storm. It came without warning. Nothing works. Emergency beacons, life support, thermal regulation, all offline. Aaron nodded grimly. The others will die without shelter and heat. The extraction team, Kargu began, won't come until scheduled, and might face the same technology failures if the storm persists. Aaron interrupted. We need to find the others now. He retrieved his pack, quickly organizing a rescue operation. Zeal, your bioluminescence, can you control it even in this cold? The alien seemed surprised by the question. Marginally, it is an organic function, not technological. Good. I need you to pulse as brightly as possible, alternating patterns if you can. Karg, your crystalline structure reflects light effectively. Position yourself here, where firelight will catch your facets. Understanding dawned in their alien features. A primitive signal beacon. I'll search for the others, Aaron continued, pulling on his parka. Keep the fire fed. There's additional fuel here. He showed them the oil-rich roots he'd gathered. They burn slowly, add one only, when the flame begins to diminish. Zeal's phosphorescent patterns rippled with what might have been embarrassment. We do not know how to maintain fire. Aaron took a moment to demonstrate the basics, how to place fuel, how to maintain proper airflow, how to avoid smothering the flames. Skills so fundamental to human existence that teaching them to advanced spacefaring beings felt surreal. I will return as soon as possible, he said, ducking into the entrance tunnel. If anyone approaches, guide them inside. The magnetic storm had intensified further, the sky now a writhing mass of color. Wind-driven snow reduced visibility to mere meters, and the temperature continued to plummet. Aaron moved methodically through the whiteout conditions, navigating by keeping the prevailing wind at a consistent angle across his face. He found the first cadet 100 meters from the collapsed alien Camp Lurax, an amphibious being now dangerously close to freezing. The cadet's exosuit had locked in position, immobilizing them completely. Aaron used his knife to cut through key connection points, freeing Lurax from the technological prison. Can't move, Lurax stuttered, membranous gills fluttering weakly. I've got you, Aaron replied, supporting the alien's weight. My shelter is this way. Others are already there. One by one, Aaron located 5 more cadets, each in various states of distress. Zact, a silicon-based life form, had fared better than most but was still suffering from exposed crystalline structures, cracking in the extreme cold. 2 others were unconscious, their biological systems shutting down from hypothermia. The Igloo, designed originally for 1, now housed 8 beings. Aaron had quickly supervised the construction of snow block partitions, creating additional insulated chambers around the central fire pit. The interior temperature had actually risen, with the addition of multiple bodies generating heat. Zeal, having overcome her initial shock, had proven surprisingly adaptive. She'd organized the conscious cadets to assist those still suffering from cold exposure, applying emergency first aid techniques that worked across species. There are still 3 unaccounted for, Aaron said, checking his makeshift head count. Plus Commander Vorik. The commander activated his personal beacon and headed for higher ground. Cargu explained. Standard procedure during communications failure. Maximize transmission potential. Aaron frowned. In this cold, climbing exposed terrain is suicide. Beacon or no beacon. The commander's exosuit is military grade, Zacht interjected. Silicon plates, shifting in what passed for a shrug. Triple redundant power systems. Which will still fail in a storm of this magnitude. Aaron countered. I need to find him. You've done enough, human, Zeal said, her voice softening. Your primitive methods have saved us. But even you cannot survive in the conditions outside for much longer. Aaron checked his supplies. His core temperature had dropped during the repeated rescue excursions, and fatigue was setting in. But he couldn't abandon others, even the commander who had dismissed his approaches to survival. Keep adding the root fuel as I showed you, he instructed. I'll return with the commander. Outside, the storm had reached catastrophic levels. The aurora now dominated the entire sky. Its colors deepened to angry reds and purples. The ground shook continuously, and the temperature had dropped below 90 degrees. Aaron navigated toward the rocky ridgeline where Vorik would likely have gone. The climbing was treacherous, ice crumbling beneath his boots, wind threatening to tear him from his handholds. Twice he was forced to dig shallow snow caves to recover his strength and warmth. He found Commander Vorik near the summit, a crystalline statue half buried in drifting snow. The commander's exosuit had indeed failed, its emergency indicators dark and lifeless. The crystalline being inside was motionless, facets dulled by extreme cold. Aaron knew that Vorik's species entered a form of suspended animation, in extreme conditions, not death, but perilously close to it. With tremendous effort, he dug the commander free and began the arduous task of dragging him down the ridge. The return journey was a nightmare of exhaustion and cold. Aaron's extremities had lost almost all sensation, and his vision narrowed to a tunnel, focused only on the next step forward. He fell repeatedly, each time forcing himself back to his feet, pulling the commander's weight behind him. When the Igloo finally appeared through the swirling snow, Aaron's reserves were nearly spent. He collapsed at the entrance, conscious just long enough to feel multiple hands dragging both him and the commander inside. Warmth returned slowly, painfully. Aaron regained consciousness to find himself wrapped in thermal blankets, salvaged from the aliens' equipment, positioned closest to the fire. Around him, the cadets moved with purpose, having organized themselves during his absence. Zeal approached, offering a cup of hot liquid. Melted ice with mineral supplements, she explained. Your body temperature dropped dangerously low. Aaron accepted the drink gratefully, noticing the changes to the Igloo's interior. The cadets had expanded the structure considerably, using his basic design principles to add multiple chambers and reinforcements. The central fire pit now featured a clever arrangement of reflective materials salvaged from their equipment, maximizing heat distribution. Commander Vorik, he asked after taking a long drink. Recovering, Zeal replied. His crystalline structure began reintegration once we raised his core temperature. He regained consciousness an hour ago. Aaron nodded, relieved. The others, all accounted for now, she said, vocal harmonics expressing what might have been respect. Lurax and Cargu found the final two cadets sheltering in a crevasse. Everyone is alive, though several will require medical attention upon extraction. Aaron struggled to sit up, surveying the expanded shelter. The cadets had adapted quickly, applying their varied physiologies and knowledge to improve upon his basic survival techniques. Zacht had created a primitive but effective ventilation system that maintained airflow while minimizing heat loss. Another cadet, a gaseous being contained within a semi-solid membrane, had discovered how to position itself to create convection currents that distributed warmth more efficiently. You've been busy, Aaron observed. We followed your example, Zeal admitted, phosphorescent patterns pulsing with what he now recognized as admiration rather than derision. The storm has disabled all our technology, but we are not helpless without it. You showed us that. From an adjacent chamber, Commander Vorik emerged, the crystalline being moved stiffly, facets still dulled from his near-death experience. He settled near the fire, crystal structures slowly regaining their luster in the warmth. "Cadet Mallory," the commander's voice resonated weakly. "It seems I owe you my continued existence." Aaron shook his head. "You would have done the same for any cadet." "Perhaps," Vorik acknowledged. "But I would have attempted a technological solution that would have failed in these conditions. Your heritage-based knowledge proved superior." The commander's admission hung in the air, significant in its humility. Around them, the alien cadets had paused in their tasks, recognizing the importance of the moment. "The Academy emphasizes adaptability above all else," Aaron said carefully. "Technology is a tool, not a solution. When it fails, we must fall back on more fundamental principles." Vorik's crystal facets shifted in what Aaron had learned was a gesture of agreement. A lesson this exercise has taught more effectively than any Academy lecture. Over the next hours, Aaron's strength returned. He worked alongside the alien cadets, teaching them basic survival skills while learning from their unique physiological adaptations. Together, they created a remarkably effective shelter system, complete with sleeping platforms, food preparation areas, and even a crude but functional wind turbine constructed from salvaged equipment parts. The turbine had been Zach's innovation, using the howling wind to turn a simple rotor that, through friction against silicon-based components, generated modest heat without electricity. The device produced barely enough thermal energy to matter, but its psychological impact was substantial. They were not just surviving, they were adapting, innovating. By the 20th hour of the magnetic storm, the Igloo complex had expanded to include a central communal area surrounded by species-specific sleeping chambers. The cadets had established work rotations for essential tasks, gathering ice plant roots for fuel, maintaining the fire, reinforcing structural elements, and monitoring the storm's progress. Commander Vorik, fully recovered, had taken a background role, observing the spontaneous cooperation with evident approval. The training mission had transformed from a simple survival exercise into a profound lesson in cross-species collaboration and primitive technology adaptation. "The extraction team will face the same technological failures when they arrive," Zeal noted during a planning session. "We should prepare signal mechanisms they can locate without sensors." Aaron nodded. "Smoke signals are our best option. We'll need to create a secondary fire site outside the igloo, using materials that produce dense smoke." "The resin sacs from deep ice plants produce colored smoke when burned," offered Lurax, who had proven knowledgeable about local flora. "Blue smoke that would contrast against the white landscape." "Perfect," Aaron agreed. "We'll need collection teams to gather enough before the extraction window." The casual efficiency with which the alien cadets now discussed primitive survival techniques highlighted their remarkable adaptation. Beings who had relied entirely on advanced technology mere hours ago now debated the best configuration of snowblocks for wind resistance and the optimal ratio of different fuels for sustained burning. As the extraction window approached, the magnetic storm finally began to subside. The aurora faded gradually from the sky, and the constant tremors diminished in frequency and intensity. Temperature readings, taken with a crude measuring device Zach had constructed, indicated a slight warming trend, though still well below fatal thresholds for most species. Commander Vorik called the cadets together as they prepared the smoke signal station. "The Academy training protocols dictate that I should not interfere with cadet-led solutions," he began, crystal facets gleaming in the firelight. "However, I feel compelled to acknowledge the exceptional circumstances of this exercise." The commander turned to Aaron. Cadet Mallory's application of heritage knowledge not only ensured his own survival, but enabled the rescue of the entire cadet group. His leadership emerged not from authority, but from expertise freely shared. The alien cadets made various gestures of agreement, according to their species' customs. Zeal's phosphorescent patterns pulsed in harmony with several others, creating a rippling light display that Aaron had come to recognize as their version of applause. When we return to the academy, Vorik continued, I will recommend a revision to the survival training curriculum. Advanced technology remains our primary methodology, but fundamental techniques must be maintained as essential knowledge, not historical curiosities. Aaron felt a strange mixture of pride and humility. Every species has its heritage wisdom, he said. Perhaps we all have something to teach one another. Indeed, Vorik agreed. This experience suggests a broader truth. The most resilient civilizations maintain connections to their foundational knowledge, even as they advance technologically. Progress without memory creates vulnerability. As dawn broke on the second day, the cadets completed their preparations. The extraction window would open in 1 hour. Outside the Igloo complex, they had constructed a substantial signal fire, ready to be lit when the extraction team approached. Inside, equipment was packed, the expanded shelter tidied, and all evidence of their survival techniques documented for Academy records. Zeal approached Aaron as he performed a final check of their signal mechanism. The concept of fire, she said, vocal harmonics expressing thoughtful consideration. It is more than just a survival tool for your species, isn't it? Aaron nodded. Fire shaped human evolution not just physically but culturally. It's a symbol as much as a tool. Warmth, safety, community, transformation. I understand better now, Zeal replied. My species evolved in warm oceans under multiple suns. We never needed fire, so we never developed the relationship your kind has with flame. Yet, in watching you these past hours, the reverence and respect with which you tend it, I sense its significance. Different evolutionary paths lead to different technological foundations, Aaron said. That's why diversity in the Academy is so valuable. No single approach encompasses all wisdom. Their philosophical discussion was interrupted by a low rumble from above. Through the smoke hole, they glimpsed a vessel descending through the cloud layer, the extraction team arriving precisely on schedule. The cadets moved outside, igniting their signal fire. Blue smoke billowed upward, creating a stark beacon against the white landscape. The extraction vessel adjusted course immediately, homing in on their position. As the ship settled onto the ice 100 meters away, Commander Vorik assembled the cadets in formation, a final gesture of Academy protocol, in an exercise that had abandoned nearly every other procedural element. The extraction team emerged from their vessel in heavy environmental suits, clearly prepared for manual operation in the aftermath of the magnetic storm. They stopped in visible surprise at the sight that greeted them, an elaborate snow structure, signal fires, and 12 cadets standing in formation, alive, and apparently well despite the catastrophic failure of their technological systems. The lead extraction officer approached Commander Vorik. Sir, we detected the magnetic storm from orbit. All communication attempts failed. We expected casualties. Vorik's crystal facets shifted in what might have been amusement. Your concern is noted, Lieutenant, but unnecessary. The cadets adapted to circumstances with remarkable ingenuity. A full report will be filed upon return to the Academy. The evacuation proceeded efficiently. Medical personnel examined each cadet, paying particular attention to those whose physiologies had been most stressed by the extreme cold. Equipment was salvaged where possible, though most of the advanced technology would require complete replacement. Before boarding the extraction vessel, Aaron took a final look at the Igloo complex, now already beginning to drift over with fresh snow. Such a simple structure, based on principles thousands of years old. Yet it had outlasted quantum field generators and molecularly engineered environmental systems. Commander Vorik joined him in this final moment of reflection. You seem reluctant to leave your creation, Cadet Mallory. Not reluctant, Aaron clarified. Just appreciative. There's something profound about the simplicity of it, how fundamental principles can sustain life, even in the most hostile environments. The Academy tends to emphasize technological advancement, Vorik acknowledged. Perhaps at the cost of foundational wisdom. Your performance here will prompt necessary reconsideration. Aaron nodded, then turned toward the waiting vessel. The other cadets had already boarded, eager to return to the warmth and comfort of the Academy. One question, if I may, Commander, Aaron said as they walked toward the ship. The magnetic storm, it wasn't supposed to occur during this season, according to the briefing materials. Vorik's crystalline features remained impassive. The Academy training program includes controlled variables and uncontrolled variables. Cadet. Learning to distinguish between them is part of the education. Aaron smiled, understanding the implication. The storm had been natural, not orchestrated a genuine emergency rather than a planned challenge. The Academy might control many factors, but nature remained gloriously, dangerously unpredictable. 3 months later, Aaron stood at attention in the Great Hall of the Orion Belt Survival Academy. Around him, the graduating class of cadets represented 37 species from across known space, each wearing the distinctive environmental adaptations of their kind. Academy Director Lazarin, a gaseous entity contained within an ornate mobility apparatus, hovered at the podium addressing the assembled graduates and faculty. And it is therefore my privilege to announce the implementation of the Glacier 9 protocol. The director's mechanized voice projected throughout the hall. Effective immediately, all Academy training will include heritage survival methodology alongside advanced technological solutions. Every cadet will learn both the cutting-edge environmental systems of their chosen specialty and the fundamental survival techniques of their species. Murmurs of approval rippled through the audience. In the months since the Glacier 9 incident, the Academy had undergone significant curriculum revisions. Commander Vorik, promoted to training oversight, had championed the changes with unexpected passion. Furthermore, Director Lazarin continued, we recognize that cross-species knowledge sharing represents one of our greatest resources. The survival techniques of one evolutionary path may offer solutions unimagined by another. Aaron's gaze met Zeal's across the assembly. The phosphorescent alien nodded slightly, her skin patterns expressing what he now recognized as respect and friendship. Since their shared ordeal, she had become one of his strongest allies at the Academy, frequently consulting him on primitive technology applications for her advanced xenobiology research. The ceremony concluded with the traditional assignment announcements. Each graduate received their first posting in the Orion Belt Security Forces. Aaron waited patiently as names were called, destinations announced. Cadet Aaron Mallory, Director Lazarin finally announced. In recognition of exceptional performance, particularly during the Glacier 9 incident, you are assigned to the Academy Training Corps as Junior Instructor of Heritage Survival Methodology. Surprised murmurs spread through the audience. Assignment to the Academy faculty immediately after graduation was almost unprecedented. Aaron accepted the position with a formal bow, as protocol required. Later, at the graduation reception, Commander Vorik approached. The director consulted me regarding your assignment, the crystalline being admitted. I may have influenced the decision. Thank you, Commander, Aaron replied sincerely. I'll do my best to honor the opportunity. I have no doubt, Vorik said. Your performance on Glacier 9 revealed something important, not just about you, but about our approach to survival training. The most sophisticated technology remains vulnerable to failure. The beings who survive are those who understand fundamental principles that require no power source beyond their own knowledge and will. Aaron nodded, thinking of the Igloo on that frozen world. how such a simple structure had sheltered beings whose natural environments ranged from methane oceans to silicon deserts. We became too dependent on our tools, Vorik continued, crystal facets shifting thoughtfully. We began to believe that advancement meant abandoning foundational knowledge rather than building upon it. You reminded us otherwise. Every species has its heritage wisdom. Aaron repeated his words from Glacier 9. I look forward to learning from others as much as teaching. That attitude, Vorik noted, is precisely why you belong on the faculty. The commander moved away to converse with other graduates, leaving Aaron to contemplate his unexpected future. From lone human representative to academy instructor, a path he could never have anticipated when he first applied to the interspecies program. One standard year after graduation, Aaron stood on the frozen shores of Lake Superior on Earth, the winter wind cutting across the ice-covered expanse. He knelt in the snow, feeling its texture between his gloved fingers, so different from the dry powder of Glacier 9 yet familiar in its fundamental properties. Behind him, a small Academy training vessel hummed quietly, its advanced cloaking systems hiding it from Earth's detection systems. This visit was personal, not official, a pilgrimage of sorts that Commander Vorik had arranged without formal documentation. Aaron constructed a small fire on the shoreline, using techniques his grandfather had taught him decades earlier. The flames caught quickly, dancing in the winter twilight. He sat before the fire, watching ice crystals form patterns on the lake's frozen surface as temperature gradients shifted with the coming night. From the ship emerged 6 figures: Zeal, Karg, Lurax, Zact, and 2 other survivors of Glacier 9, now fellow Academy instructors specializing in cross-species survival methodology. They joined Aaron by the fire, each adapting to Earth's environment through minimal technological assistance rather than the full environmental suits that would have been standard procedure before their shared experience. So this is your homeworld, Zeal observed, phosphorescent patterns rippling with interest as she absorbed the landscape. It contains impressive temperature variations. This is just one biome, Aaron explained. Earth has everything from deserts hotter than your homeworld to rainforests more humid than Lurax's oceans. The aliens observed their surroundings with evident fascination. Earth remained officially outside regular Academy visitation protocols, a protected world whose populations were considered unprepared for formal first contact. This exception had required significant administrative maneuvering by Commander Vorik. The fundamental techniques we now teach, Kargu said, crystalline appendages gesturing toward the simple fire. They all originated here, in your species' long adaptation to environmental challenges. Every intelligent species develops fundamental survival strategies, Aaron corrected gently. What happened on Glacier 9 wasn't just about human techniques. It was about remembering that technology should enhance our foundational knowledge, not replace it. The new Academy curriculum reflects this philosophy, Zact noted. Silicon plates shifting in the equivalent of a nod. First-year cadets now complete survival certification using only heritage techniques before advancing to technological systems. Aaron smiled, watching his breath form clouds in the cold air. The Academy had indeed transformed. The Glacier 9 protocol had expanded beyond survival training to influence operational doctrine throughout the Orion Belt security forces. Redundant systems now included low-technology backups alongside quantum computing. Field kits contained both matter synthesizers and primitive tools. We should return before Earth's orbital satellites detect anomalies, Lurax reminded the group, membranous gills fluttering in the cold. Aaron nodded, standing to extinguish the fire with practiced movements. He scooped snow onto the flames, ensuring every ember was completely doused, a ritual of respect passed down through countless human generations. As they prepared to board the vessel, Aaron paused for a final look at the frozen landscape of his homeworld. From here, humanity had looked to the stars, dreaming of the day they would join the wider galactic community. That day would come eventually, but not yet. For now, Earth continued its solitary development, unaware of the Academy or the Orion Belt Alliance. Yet one human's knowledge, heritage, wisdom, developed across thousands of years of adaptation to Earth's diverse environments, had already influenced the training of beings from dozens of worlds. The simple Igloo, built on Glacier 9, had sparked a philosophical shift that now rippled outward through Academy doctrine. "Ready, Instructor Mallory," Zeal asked from the vessel's entry ramp. Aaron nodded, turning away from the Earth landscape. "Ready." As the ship lifted silently into the night sky, cloaking systems rendering it invisible to Earth's monitoring systems, Aaron reflected on the journey that had brought him here. From a solitary human cadet to a respected Academy instructor, from primitive survival techniques to a philosophical revolution in training methodology. Commander Vorik had said it best during their ordeal progress: without memory creates vulnerability. The most resilient civilizations maintain connections to their foundational knowledge, even as they advance technologically. In the cold darkness of space, humanity's ancient wisdom of fire, shelter, and survival continued to spread among the stars, a legacy more enduring than any technology. Passed from one world to countless others, across the vast expanse of the Orion Belt and beyond.